Welcome to the HerStory Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello. I am so grateful to be here. My name is Railey. I am the founder of Relationship Intelligence. I'm based in the UK, but I'm originally from the US. I was living in Barcelona for 10 years, which is an absolutely incredible city. And now I'm here in the UK with my husband, and it is such a beautiful, beautiful day outside. So I'm so grateful to be here to share my story. Sharing stories is how we connect, and I'm just so passionate about sharing my story and having other people share their story on this platform. So it's super, super exciting to be here. So I originally come from the US. I was born in this very abusive and neglectful household. I was originally abandoned when I was born by my father, and this was a very, very traumatic experience. Even though I didn't know that this happened to me, it's something that came up so much in my life as I grew up. Growing up without a father, especially as a young girl, you start to question, is there something wrong with me? Am I worthy of love? Am I supposed to have this beautiful connective experience? There were a lot of questions that were lingering for me because of this experience that I had of growing up without a father. I then lived with my mother and my stepfather in this extremely abusive and neglectful household. There were so many times where I just felt really confused as to why this was happening to me, why this was my family and not the families of other friends that I saw. There was a lot of questioning about my worth, what kind of life I was going to have, and whether or not this was an experience I even wanted to be a part of. So I had this experience as a child, and it was extremely confusing to me because I didn't have anything else to reference it to. I didn't know what happiness looked like. I didn't know what love looked like. And I definitely didn't know what thriving relationships look like. But I knew that I wanted something more. I knew that I wanted to be happy and to feel love and to feel connected. I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like, but there was certainty in my heart that that was for me. I ended up leaving home when I was 16. I got so overwhelmed with the abuse and the neglect that I knew that I had to try to have this experience somewhere else. So I packed everything up. I left home when I was 16, and I went on this journey of really finding myself and finding out what life was truly all about. When I was in school, in grade school, I was labeled as gifted, academically gifted. So I was a straight A student. I had all of the accolades. I won all the awards. So I had this sort of street smarts. And then leaving home at 16, I had the book smarts. And then leaving at 16, I gained street smarts. I learned how to get a house and a car. I was studying 2 degrees at university. I was excelling in school. On paper, it looked like I had everything. But inside, I was crumbling. I was struggling with depression and anxiety. I ended up getting an eating disorder. And I had all of these material items, but I had no connection. I felt deeply distant from the people in my family. I felt deeply distant from myself. I felt no connection deeply to other people. So my friendships were superficial, my relationships were toxic, and I knew that that wasn't going to be enough. So it got to the point where one day I decided that I was going to take my life. I decided that I didn't want to experience life anymore. I didn't want to participate. And I decided that that was what I was going to do, that life was just too overwhelming. I was extremely depressed, sad all the time. And I said, I don't want to do this to myself. So I decided one day to go to a hotel room and I was going to make that decision to take my life. In the moment leading up to that, there was this feeling that came over me. And I asked myself, do I actually want to die or do I want the suffering to end? I asked myself if I could create a different experience, if I could create this happiness that I always longed for, is that something I wanted to experience? And the answer was yes. I really, really wanted that. I just previously thought it was impossible because that's where I came from. And that was my truth. So I decided that I have nothing to lose because when you face the end of your life, there is nothing else. So I decided that I was going to go on this journey and I was going to figure out how to create this life I always wanted, but never had access to. So I decided to take one step at a time. And I fell down so many times. I scraped my knee and I picked myself back up. And I fell down and I picked myself back up because I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't given the tools. I learned how to get a job. I learned how to get a house. I learned how to invest in the stock market. I learned how to tie my shoes. I learned how to read and write, but I never learned how to build a thriving life for myself. So along this journey of learning after decades, I realized that so many other people didn't have these tools either. That in school, we're taught how to get a job, how to have this amazing education when it comes to curriculum, but we're not taught how to be amazing human beings. We're not taught how to overcome trauma. We're not taught how to heal our nervous system. We're not taught how to build beautiful relationships and be happy. So this was the education for me that was missing. This was for me what was so important to learn. I had to learn how to overcome everything that I came from, everything that I wasn't taught. I had to fill in those gaps. So I started to listen to motivational speakers. I started to fill my head with those thoughts and ideas that were never passed down to me. I had to learn how to talk positively to myself. I had to learn how to communicate. When I was frustrated and angry for so much of my life, I threw things at the wall, literally. That sound of crashing, it soothed me. Some people take drugs, some people drink. I threw things. And I felt that that was my way to release my anger. But when I got into relationships, I realized that that wasn't an acceptable way to communicate my feelings. So I had to learn how to communicate. I had to learn how to soothe my nervous system. I had to learn how to express myself. I was like a child emotionally, even though I was advanced academically. So I started to listen to motivational videos to learn how to build myself up to even go on this journey. I had to learn how to communicate effectively. I had to learn exactly what it was that I wanted for my life. I had to learn what am I creating in the first place? And so all of these steps were steps that took me towards the life that I'm now living. There was so much learning that had to go on and failing and believing in myself and believing in my mission and believing in my life. It took many, many years for me to believe that I was even worthy of this because, again, I was abandoned when I was born. When you're abandoned, you feel like, well, I'm not good enough for someone to keep me. I must be easy to throw away. So I had to learn to build that worthiness within myself, to move forward in life and to say that I am worth it. My life is worth it. So along this journey, as I learned these tools, I looked around me and I realized that so many other people didn't have them. There were people that I met that were extremely successful, again, on paper, They had the house, they had the job, they had the car, they had fancy clothes, but they were miserable. Every time I picked up the phone, they're complaining about their job, they're complaining about their relationship. And I'm thinking, with all this money and all this fame, you're still miserable. And so I understood that this wasn't a personal issue. This wasn't something where I was the exception. A lot of people haven't been abandoned by their parents, but they've still experienced the same feelings that I have. They've still experienced the same trauma that I have of not feeling seen, heard, understood, loved. So I realized that I had to go on this journey and to share my experience with others.
What an incredible journey you've been on. My goodness. What is fascinating when I listen to you speak is that it is such a common experience. In one way, shape, or form, everybody can express that they have had challenges with their relationships, be it personal or at work. But now, you've now developed something that is helping people, which you call the relationship intelligence. How is it different from traditional relationship coaching?
Absolutely. So, relationship intelligence is the ability to build, navigate, and sustain aligned relationships that
Mhm.
empower us to create thriving relationships, businesses, and lives that we love. It's the bigger picture of everything and the answer to why we're here. We're here to connect. We're here to live our absolute best life. So while relationship coaching targets typically romantic relationships, this is an essential aspect of our experience, but it doesn't target the bigger picture, which is all of our relationships, the way we relate to our colleagues, the way we relate to our neighbor, the way we relate to money, to finances, to our health. Our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with others are the foundation of everything that we do. And without understanding how to navigate these relationships, we're set up for failure.
So, can you explain the neuroscience behind emotional alignment in relationships?
Yes. So when we are emotionally aligned and we
Mhm.
understand exactly what our vision is for our life, it calms our nervous system and it allows us to feel safe. The reason
Mhm.
why people shout, they get depressed, they have addictions is because they don't feel safe. They're trying to quiet and silence something inside of themselves. So when we are aligned with our vision and we are aligned with the highest expression of ourselves, we release oxytocin, that feel good hormone, and it allows us to understand that we are on the right path. When we are stressed and we're overwhelmed and we're constantly pumping out cortisol, we're not aligned with the best version of ourselves and we're not
Mhm.
doing service to ourselves or others.
Wow, it's amazing. So, what inspired you to create your own framework instead of using the existing models that are out there?
Yes.
Mhm.
Relationship intelligence, it doesn't exist in a package. So the tools and the concept of relationship intelligence isn't something that I invented. Everything is based on science. It's been proven. It's just human psychology and the way we interact and the way we connect. But as a package, it doesn't exist. And I think that we really highlight academics. It's so important to get good grades and to go to university, and we want people to become doctors and lawyers and get great jobs, and this is wonderful. But the human experience requires us to understand and manage our relationships successfully,
Yeah.
because we can have all of those things, but without the relationships we become robots, we become AI algorithms. That human element that makes us so unique and that thing that's going to bring us into the future is our relationships. So
Mhm.
this is something that hasn't been packaged before in a digestible way for people to understand. And
Mhm.
it's really, really important to me that people understand the power of their own relationships with themselves, with their colleagues, with everyone.
So, how does relationship intelligence apply in the corporate or leadership environments?
Yes, we have long been focusing on what we deem as hard skills. These
Yeah.
are things that you can chart and you can graph. And we've always said, leave the emotions at the door.
Yeah.
And we've seen the repercussions of this. We have burnout, quiet quitting. We have lots of money lost in miscommunication. We have companies draining energy because of the mental health of the staff. So we're realizing and accepting that emotions play a huge role in the workplace because we can create all of the algorithms, we can automate everything, we can have AI. But the question is, who's running those systems? Who's running those machines? And that's humans. So we are always going to be at the heart of every company, no matter how technologically advanced it becomes.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people think AI is going to replace us, but I don't think that's possible at all.
Mm.
So, what patterns do you see most often in women who struggle with relationships?
I see the same pattern that's happening with men. It does show up a little bit differently, but that is the ignorance. We don't know how to have modern day relationships.
Mm,
Relationships have changed more in the last 50 years than they have in the last 5,000. We have more freedom than ever to decide who we want to be and who we want to be in a relationship with. We can
yeah,
create whatever experience we have. So it's no longer, if you're a man, you have to go out and work and make the money. And if you're a woman, you stay home and you take care of the children. You get to choose whatever you want to do. So if you want to live on a farm or you want to live on the beach or you want to be a CEO or stay at home mom, you get to choose whatever life you want. And
mm,
it's fantastic. But where we struggle is we don't know how to navigate those freedoms, meaning we don't know how to find a compatible partner. We don't know
mm,
how to
mm,
navigate all of the changes, all of the ups and downs. We don't know how to communicate because now we both have an equal voice in the relationship. So we're not
yeah,
sure how to navigate that. So women specifically, they have a lot of emotions, they have a lot of passion, they want to create these beautiful experiences, but they don't have the tools in order to do that, and so they suffer in silence.
man, yeah, that silent piece. A lot of women suffer in silence.
Mm.
So, you talk about legacy building. How do emotional wounds tie into that? Because sometimes the legacy is a legacy from the past, generational trauma in your family, the lineage of the women in your family, and then it's the generations to come.
Yes. So the legacy comes from the experiences that our parents had and our grandparents had, and we pass this down. And we can pass it down in a positive way, or we can pass it down in a negative way. So for me, the emotional trauma that I experienced had come from my mother, who came from her mother. And the stories that we hear are really showing exactly how that works.
Yeah,
It's really important to understand that healing these emotional wounds will heal the future, because
yeah,
for me, I was grown into this very toxic environment and this into this traumatic experience, and I experienced that myself. I was a person who didn't know how to communicate. I was self-sabotaging. I was throwing things at the wall. So I could have repeated those mistakes with my children, and then so on and so forth. But I had to make that decision that enough was enough. I had to take the responsibility to heal those wounds and to
yeah.
make sure that my experience and future generations' experience was better than what I was born into.
Mhm. So you literally broke the cycle, and it stops with you through your healing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I always say, it's not our fault what happens to us. It
Mm,
wasn't my fault that I was abandoned or I grew up in this environment, but it was 100% my responsibility to take me from where I was to where I wanted to go. So
mm,
those emotional wounds that we experience, they're not our fault. A lot of times they are passed down to us. And sometimes we want to say, I'm not taking that. That's not my business. But
yeah.
if it's on you, it is your responsibility to heal through it so that you can move forward.
So what are some of the practical first steps that women can take to begin healing their relationship patterns?
The first thing is awareness,
Hmm.
understanding that this is the experience you're having, whether
Yeah.
that's I'm in a toxic relationship, or I'm not fulfilled with the relationship I have with my children, or
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be an artist, but I'm stuck at this 9 to 5 job. Whatever that experience is that you're having, have the awareness of what's going on, and then use relationship intelligence to take you from where you are to where you want to go. So, for example, in your romantic relationship, if you are fighting with your partner, I'm 100% against fighting. I believe that when you have the tools, you never have to fight. So if you're in a relationship where you're fighting with your partner, you have the ability to learn the tools in order to navigate conflict with compassion, with active listening, with an open mind, with problem solving techniques. But the question is, are you going to do the work? And that's where that responsibility comes in, to say, it's not my fault that I don't have the education because I didn't learn it in school. I didn't learn it from my parents, but it is my responsibility to now learn these RI tools so that I can create beautiful relationships without fighting. I can become that artist that I've always wanted to. I can take those vacations. I can live my absolute best life.
I love it. Yeah, that responsibility piece is absolutely crucial. It
It's
is on
tough.
us. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not easy though. So, what is your proudest moment in this journey so far?
I would say that I have two. So the first one, when it comes to myself, the thing that I'm so proud about myself is the life that I now live, because
Okay.
I once was going to take that away from myself, and
Mm,
the trauma that I experienced, and the abuse, and the self-sabotage, and the shame, and all of the darkness felt so overwhelming. I thought I would never live the life that I live now. I
yeah,
never went on a family vacation growing up. There was no such thing. And now I travel the world with my husband. And so every day I wake up, I'm so proud of the resilience that I have and the stubbornness that I have of not accepting anything less. I would say for others, the proudest thing that I have experienced is the transformation with my clients. I've
wow.
had people who come to me and they're on the brink of divorce. They're about to close their company. They're depressed, they're anxious, they're frustrated, and they've tried all of these sort of hacks and tips and tricks, and a little bit of therapy and a little bit of this, and they're like, it's not working, it's not sustainable. So when they use the RI framework and it shifts everything in their life and they have that transformation, that is my proudest moment, because I'm just so excited that people can have this sort of second chance of life the way that I did.
It's a game changer. Wow. That's just amazing. So, what role does emotional safety play in love and leadership?
Safety is everything. When
Mm,
we are shouting at our partner, when we're gossiping about our colleague, it's all because we don't feel safe. And when we don't feel safe, we react rather than respond. So if
yeah.
my husband is saying something that I don't like and I don't feel safe, I might shout at him, or I might walk away, or I might ignore him. That's to protect myself. So when we feel safe in a relationship, we can show up fully. I
Yeah.
feel 100% confident that I can go and talk to my husband about everything. He might not like everything that I have to say.
Yes. Yes.
He might not agree with everything that I have to say, which is perfectly fine, but he
Yeah.
will sit and he will listen and accept the things from my perspective. So we've created that safe space where we don't have to have resentment, we don't have to have defensiveness. The understanding is flowing, the communication is flowing, because we feel safe emotionally with each other. And in the
Mm,
corporate environment as well, when you feel that everyone is on the same page, you have the same vision, everyone is there to support each other, you feel safer to
mm,
voice your concerns, to talk about things that are working and not working. You
yeah.
make bold decisions and bring bold ideas, and you're more able to navigate issues like burnout and quiet quitting and feeling disconnected.
So, what's one thing that you wish all women understood about their emotional power?
I wish I wish women understood how to navigate it. I would say that, because we've been deemed as emotional creatures, which
Yeah.
a negative connotation. Emotions are incredible. They're absolutely incredible because they give you insight into who you are and what you're aligned with and whether or not something's working or whether it's dangerous or safe. So they speak to us to allow us to navigate life. But if we don't know how to navigate them, we become victim to them. So for example, when I was growing up, my anger got the best of me. I would have these fits of rage. I would punch things, I would throw things, I would scream, and I became a victim to my emotion. And then later down the line, people would say, "Well, why do you have holes in your walls?" And I would say, "Well, it's because of my anger." And the real reason was because I let my anger control me rather than using it as a tool of insight.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you keep yourself emotionally nourished while guiding others through their healing? You're dealing with emotions all the time.
Yes, I lean on relationship intelligence. So I use things like acceptance. I accept that the world is full of things that I like and full of things that I don't like. So when I have
Right.
a couple coming to me and they've been experiencing infidelity, it's
Yes.
something that I don't like. It makes me really sad because I know that there's so much suffering there. But I'm able to detach because I do accept that infidelity is a part of life. And
Yeah.
I'm here to support them and give them the tools that they need to navigate that. I use things like problem solving techniques. If I feel overwhelmed or if I feel um, imposter syndrome or any of these emotions, I'm able to use problem solving to say, this is where I am, and I'm going to figure out where I need to go. And I use the patience and the compassion for myself to get me to where I need to be.
I love it. Yeah, that compassion for yourself is very crucial. They say that we are our own worst enemies. We say things to ourselves we would never say to our own best friend.
Yes.
And being aware of that and catching yourself when you become very self-critical, I think is part of the healing process as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and most people don't know how to build a relationship with themselves, and this
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
educational aspect of RI. It's learning, how do you build trust with yourself?
Yeah.
How do you build confidence? How do you nourish yourself? The same way you nourish a relationship with a partner, how do you nourish a relationship with yourself? And this is one thing that I see a lot of people struggle with when they're in a relationship with a partner, because they think, if I'm in a relationship with my partner, we become 50-50. You know, we're two halves of the whole. But the truth is, there are
You're
three.
still you.
There's
Yes.
there's your partner and there's the couple. So you still have to nurture that
Yes.
relationship with self, and that requires compassion and understanding and self-awareness and all of that great stuff.
So what's your long-term vision for the relationship intelligence movement? You have started a revolution here. Where do you see it going?
Yes, we are bringing relationship intelligence to every corner of the world. We're making sure that it is a tool that everyone has. And the best way to do this is through the education system. It's great that we learn how to read and we learn how to write and we learn how to, do chemistry and all of these wonderful things, but we're not set up for success. School is setting us up for a job, but it's not setting us up for a successful life and a successful future. So we're bringing relationship intelligence into the education system. We're going to different conferences, different universities to make sure that people have the awareness of how important this education is. It's no longer just about getting a job and doing your day-to-day 9 to 5, coming home, having dinner, watching TV, and going to bed. It is our responsibility to live our best life for ourselves, for our family, for the future generations.
I absolutely love it. Now, if I could take you into the past to go and have a conversation with a younger you,
Hmm.
this young woman who felt lost, disconnected with self, with others, just in case there's a young woman who's listening to us right now, if you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be based on what life has taught you up until this point?
I would say, firstly, learn to love yourself. We're taught to love other people, to love our partner, to love our children, to love our family. But really, it starts with loving ourselves, having the confidence to think about what it is that you want. Nothing is written for us. We get to decide what our life is going to look like. And when we choose wisely and we choose based on what is aligned with us, we're going to show up as the best version of ourselves. I would say the second nugget is to learn how to heal. We're all carrying that generational trauma, ignorance, whether it's as big as an experience that I went through, like being abandoned, or just simply feeling ignored by your parents at the dinner table when you were trying to tell them something. We all have these generational experiences that require us to pay attention, to slow down, and to nurture those little versions of ourselves. And the third nugget is to never, ever, ever give up. I was facing the end of my life, and it would have been the easy way out. Really loving yourself and believing that you are worthy and you are worth an incredible life is the most amazing experience you can have. Saying to yourself that I'm going to push through and create this beautiful life for myself because I am so worthy.
Wow. I'm telling you, we all need to hear these words. We all need to be reminded. And I'm really excited to have found you. Thank you for sharing your story with our community today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I love, love, love the work that you're doing.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So whether it's you who's needing that emotional support, to get in touch with yourself, to be able to communicate with your boss, with your colleagues at work, or you might know someone else who's struggling, please go onto this website, get the help that you need. Spread this video, share it with others, and let's create a life where women are empowered, first by ourselves, then in the relationships that we have going forward. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. Thank you so much for this interview. It was just absolutely awesome sharing you with our community today.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.